Mark Rogers TV getting you set for spring practice at South Carolina on Saturday. We bring in Will Gunter from the all-new early game, 107.5 The Game. And Will, it's always a pleasure. So let's break down the running backs as we've gone position by position. We've looked at quarterbacks, wide receivers, and offensive line. Rico Dowdle with a fine freshman season, about 764 yards rushing, scored 6 touchdowns. Of course, A.J. Turner in the mix, so combined 9 touchdowns, about 1,200 yards rushing. Obviously, you need to look more into the stats, and more than that, watch the games, because as is the case with a lot of SEC teams and Power 5 conference teams across the nation, those stats for the lesser teams are built upon the weaker teams. Rico busted out against Western Carolina with 227 on the ground, had another fine game against a Mizzou defense that was one of the lesser units in the conference. So are you pleased with the running back situation and these two guys in particular?
Yeah, I think South Carolina fans should be very excited about the running back situation, and it's not inconceivable. I said this on another radio show that South Carolina is going to have one of the top running back trios, and I'm well aware of what Georgia's coming back with and what Alabama always has, but let's just start with the guys you mentioned before we get to Tyson Williams. But Rico Dowdle, much like Jake Bentley was injured, Bentley wasn't injured, but Rico Dowdle was out with a sports hernia injury for about the first 6 weeks of the season. He made his debut with about 4 carries against Texas A&M, but he's a special player. And you're right, he did run up a lot of stats against Western Carolina. He did have a 100-yard game against Tennessee that was vital for them to beat Tennessee here in Columbia. But Rico Dowdle enhanced the running game. And I think when you take he and A.J. Turner, look, everybody uses the thunder lightning term, and I don't necessarily want to throw that out, but that's kind of what it is. Rico Dowdle's the bigger, stronger, more power back. A.J. Turner is the speed back who can kind of hit you. A.J. Turner had the 75-yard touchdown run against Texas A&M. He also had some other long runs throughout the season. So Turner's more the 5'8", 5'7", kind of lightning quick running back, whereas Dowdle is the strong back. So that's where you start. And now you're going to add Tyson Williams, a transfer from North Carolina, to the mix. And there is people that have raved about Tyson Williams' ability. They think he's going to be the starter, that he's going to come in and beat out Rico Dowdle. I know people at North Carolina were very high on him. He's from Crestwood High School in South Carolina, wanted to come back and be closer to home and play. And this is a kid, I think when you factor him into the mix, if he can stay healthy, is going to have a massive impact on the South Carolina run game, giving them 3 very high-quality SEC-type backs to take a load off of the passing game.
Yeah, when Williams came out, 247 had him listed as the 5th best player in the state, as you well know, 22nd rated running back in all of the nation. And so obviously this is how it is if you're playing some decent football, regardless of what the productivity was the previous season, there's usually a guy coming in who's going to push the starters for some playing time. So you've got 3 definite options right there. And how are these guys in regards to the way you project them helping out in the passing game, both as blockers and as receivers out in the flat?
Well, Dowdle and Williams are big, physical, strong guys that can block, and that's what you'll need, obviously, in the SEC with blitz pickup. Turner is more of a change of pace back. You get him in, again, to college. I don't know if it's fair to call him a third down back. He can block. He's going to do that. But your other 2 are your bigger, stronger, 6', 6'1" type running backs, and they can all catch the ball out of the backfield. I mean, this is a complete group. I think there's going to continue to be the narrative, and rightfully so, based on, as you mentioned, statistics, but there's going to continue to be the narrative that Will Muschamp cannot coach an offensive team, that his teams offensively are very bad. And, you know, this is a turning point year for that. There are weapons. You and I talked about the wide receivers last week, Jake Bentley. There's weapons at running back. If the offensive line, going back to that position, can get itself fixed and they can put 5 quality guys out there, this could be the best offense, obviously statistically, but talent-wise, and that includes the players he had at Florida, the best offense talent-wise that Will Muschamp's ever had. So now it's on Kurt Roper to utilize, as you mentioned, those guys, those running backs, whether it's the screen game or the run game or however. So I think it's a very complete offense. And, you know, as you just mentioned, whether it's the screen game or blitz pickup or whatever it may be, the running backs are a very complete group. I think that's a group that could shock people if South Carolina's having a good season with the talent they actually have.
Well, what's exciting about it at first glance is, unless you're Alabama, Ohio State, a handful of schools that are in a different place. For a bulk of the other FBS schools, the Power Fives, the next 50, let's say, you've got a situation where it's a bit frustrating because, man, we're going to be really strong in these two units along, whether it's offense or defense, but we lost all this. So we have no idea what's coming back. You've got, at least at the skill position players, and it sounds like along the offensive line to a lesser extent, but definitely a quarterback, running back, and wide receiver. You're very young, but they all have substantial playing time under their belts from last season. So you've got a group that's maturing together.
No, there's no doubt. I mean, again, offensively, I get the narrative. I totally understand. Even last year, statistically speaking, you rattled off the rushing numbers. But you're right. Rico Dowdle, who was the leading rusher on the team, was a freshman and got substantial carries. Jake Bentley, again, the leading passer, but is back. Debo Samuel at wide receiver. The offensive line only lost one player. Going back to that, they lose Mason Zandy, the left tackle. Now they've got to find tackles. There's no doubt that if you want something that can short circuit the offense, there's great pass rushers up and down the schedule that South Carolina is going to play. You face a great pass rusher each time you step on the football field in the SEC, and South Carolina's tackles are going to be the weak link in 2017 if they can't find somebody. That's something that can really short circuit that offense. But I think the narrative there that Will Muschamp, just bad offensive coach, whatever it may be, Kurt Roper, this is the year you have to flip it around because there is talent there. Like you said, it's young talent. I mean, these are guys that will technically next year in 2018, Bentley will be a junior, Dowdle will be a junior, Tyson Williams will be back, Debo Samuel will be gone, but you have Brian Edwards and Ortre Smith and Shi Smith. I mean, most of the offensive line will continue to come. It's a group, like you said, that I think if you're a Gamecock fan, you got to be realistic. You got to understand that this is still a program that's growing. But there is a lot of reasons to be ultra positive about what Will Muschamp's putting into place, especially offensively, given that that's always the knock on him, but moving forward with this program.
Yeah, when you have young players that are playing together, maturing at the same time, and they're still young in terms of class rank, but they already have substantial big game experience under their belts, that's a good place to be for any college football team. Join Will Gunter on the all-new early game 107.5 The Game. Will, I don't know if you got my day started or I got your day started, but either way, we always appreciate the knowledge and the conversation.
I'm about to, you started the day. I guess at no point going back to bed now. It's time to head down to the pool and keep the wedding weekend. I'm not getting married. That's not me, but time to keep this little party going. So we'll just head on down to the pool and pick it up for the rest of the day.